This is News 4 In Depth. Our extensive coverage of the crisis at the border in the national spotlight. A border battle between Texas and the federal government.
This administration's refusal to take its responsibility for this crisis, it's pathetic.
People on the other side of the aisle have been playing politics with this issue.
We are holding state leaders accountable, asking them how they will keep us safe.
We're going to be hopeful that somehow, some way, we can protect the people of Texas from the incredible negative consequences of the border being overrun by the cartel.
Plus, we're following the money, getting you answers on the impact and cost of having migrants in San Antonio.
We have said many times to people we cannot do this anymore.
News 4 goes in depth on the crisis at the border.
Good evening and welcome to News 4 San Antonio In Depth. Tonight we dive into the crisis at the border.
Yeah, we'll also have today's top stories and have a full look at your forecast as well.
So first, we've showed you scenes like this for months.
Yeah, thousands of migrants crossing the Texas border into America, hoping for a better life for themselves along with their families. Some are coming from as far away as Central America, crossing into Texas from border checkpoints into places like Del Rio, Eagle Pass, and Laredo. The top three countries they're coming from: Venezuela, Nicaragua, even Cuba. Hundreds of thousands have ended up right here in San Antonio. Many are here for days and for some even weeks as they go through the immigration process and wait for a bus or a flight to their final destination. The numbers from the city of San Antonio, they are staggering. Since January of 21, more than 593,000 migrants have arrived in San Antonio. More than 228,000 of them came to San Antonio in 2023. And so far in 24, just over 7,100 have come through our city. Now, most of them end up at the Migrant Resource Center along San Pedro Avenue, where we went today, and the scene much different. We saw one migrant, a few workers, and buses lined up there. According to city data, 302 migrants arrived here in just the last day.
While the numbers have gone down, the price tag is getting longer and longer. The News 4 I-team looked into how your tax dollars are being spent to run the city's Migrant Resource Center. Records from the city show it spent $9.3 million from January to October last year to pay for staffing, transportation, cleaning, and maintaining the facility. We requested numbers for November to December to round the year out. We're still waiting for those. The city says the federal government reimburses at 100%, and the cost of operating the center does not impact the city's budget.
Catholic Charities has partnered with the city to run day-to-day operations at the center, and for them, resources, they are being spread thin. The center is only equipped to handle around 700 people, and they've seen up to 8,000 at one time in the recent months. And new today, we learned the city has approval to spend $13.4 million from FEMA for the last quarter of 2023 and for 24 to support the center. Back in May, the city of San Antonio opened up the Airport Transfer Center meantime to help support the Migrant Resource Center. The facility is for migrants with a ticketed flight and a scheduled departure within 24 hours. The city manager telling us upwards of 400 migrants were spending the night in airport terminals before the ATC opened. We checked in today, and in the last week, there have been an average of 120 people per day using the ATC. Also reaching a boiling point, the showdown at the Texas-Mexico border.
The two sides at odds, the state and the federal government. News 4 I-team's Mariah Medina has the timeline and details of the feud that's reached the nation's highest court.
Yeah, that's right, guys. This all started in July of last year when the United States government sued Governor Greg Abbott and the state of Texas over buoys the state erected in the Rio Grande and Eagle Pass. Now, legal filings by the United States taking aim at the buoys because they allege they impede the navigability of the Rio Grande in violation of the Rivers and Harbors Act, which expressly prohibits such barriers. Now, before filing suit, the U.S. government requested that Abbott remove the barrier they argued was in violation of federal law. Abbott's response: Texas will see you in court, Mr. President. Days later, the state of Texas responded to the government's lawsuit on August 9th, saying that the United States would not be able to prove that the section of the river is navigable and that the buoys obstruct the navigability of the river. Abbott's office also arguing that they have the authority to protect itself from an invasion. In September, federal district court judge David Ezra granted the United States request that the state remove the buoys, but the state of Texas appealed that ruling, and the Fifth Court granted a stay of Judge Ezra's ruling, meaning that Texas could leave the buoys up. A panel of judges sided with the U.S. government in the end, but the state of Texas requested a hearing by the full court and again allowed the state to leave the buoys up until they rehear the issues in May. Separately, the state of Texas placed razor wire along the border to prevent illegal entry via the Rio Grande. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton sued the United States after federal agents began cutting and removing the wire. That lawsuit, filed in October, sought to have the courts prohibit agents from removing the razor wire. The state of Texas was initially successful after Judge Aaliyah Moses ordered the federal government to stop destroying the razor barriers temporarily, though later the judge denied a more permanent request from the state of Texas for the same thing. Paxton appealed that decision to the Fifth Court of Appeals. The appeals court reinstated the ban on destroying the razor wire in December, but just this week, the Supreme Court weighed in and granted the federal government the ability to cut the razor wire. This complicating another situation in Eagle Pass. The Texas National Guard effectively took control of Shelby Park, an area undocumented immigrants used to enter the country illegally. While the Supreme Court ruling would allow the federal agents to go in and cut the razor wire, video shows DPS Lieutenant Chris Olivares posted that the state actually added more razor wire this week, and Governor Abbott signaling state law enforcement would hold the line. So as for what comes next, the Department of Homeland Security is giving the state until tomorrow to allow federal agents across access to Shelby Park, but it appears the state has no intentions to abide by that deadline, meaning we could have yet another state and federal showdown on our hands. For the News 4 I-Team, I'm Mariah Medina.
All right, Mariah, thank you for that. Governor Greg Abbott has already declared an invasion based on what he's seen at the southern border, and he says the U.S. Constitution allows Texas to defend itself. In the last 24 hours, Republican governors from across the country are voicing their support for Governor Abbott, along with Texas. Florida, Virginia, and Montana, just a few of the states that say they stand with Texas, but legal experts say this is mainly a social and political tactic.
But counties, states, those actions are subordinate to the actions of the federal government. The federal government's determinations are supreme.
Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson is also voicing support for Texas at the federal level. It's another sign of the rising tensions on this very issue.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton was in San Antonio earlier this week. Amanda Henderson asked him about the state's fight over the Supreme Court ruling to take down the razor wire in Eagle Pass.
They apparently can still cut down our wire and our fences, which I find unconscionable. So I'm not going to give it up just because we got a 5-4 ruling. We still had 4 justices with us.
Paxton also says he'll be in court fighting the Shelby Pass issue. And all of this has played out in our backyard. We've been dedicated to bringing you in-depth coverage from the border for years.
Yeah, the I-Team's Jordan Elder has made multiple trips to the border. She joins us now in studio. And Jordan, what are the trends that we're currently seeing right now?
So we were in Eagle Pass as thousands of migrants sat there waiting to be processed by Border Patrol. You've seen those images in this newscast. That's not what it looks like right now. Crossings are way down from what it was. It's important to note, though, the federal government hasn't released what the crossing numbers were in December, and those are expected to just absolutely break records. So definitely something that we're keeping an eye on. But officials say it's really just a matter of time until we see those numbers go up again, which is why they're pushing so hard for policy.
All right, another question we did want to ask, how are the residents along the border reacting to all the tensions that we're currently seeing?
At least in Eagle Pass, I think people are very frustrated. This is their life that they live every single day. Visually, their communities have been really changed. There's miles of razor wire and buoys and things that they didn't grow up with, because a lot of the people that live along the border, their families have been there for generations. So for them, it's very different. And I think they are calling for help louder than anyone because that's their home and they're seeing such a change.
Well, thank you, Jordan. We appreciate your insight. You've obviously been there a handful of times, and we appreciate your reporting there. So to other aspects of this, as we continue this newscast, this in-depth newscast, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was at the southern border earlier this month, sending a strong message to Governor Greg Abbott, who's bused 100,000 migrants to northern states, something not approved by the federal government.
What is important is for one state official to cooperate, to collaborate, and to communicate with other state officials. We work best when we all work together to address a shared challenge. And the unilateral action, when one deliberately does not communicate and collaborate, wreaks havoc.
Mayorkas has come under fire in recent months, with some saying he is not enforcing the nation's immigration laws. We continue to watch how that plays out, and we'll bring you developments as they happen.
The crisis at the border continues to be top of mind for voters ahead of this year's presidential election. Meantime,
immigration is important to me. I think, they need to come, everyone needs to become legal.
I think they should be more careful about letting everybody in.
40% of voters in Iowa just last week naming immigration the most important issue facing the nation right now, and that could present a challenge for President Joe Biden as he looks to be reelected. And as more migrants go to cities across our country, more people are paying attention to that very issue, and Republicans taking advantage by keeping the issue front and center.
In a few weeks, a new Texas law goes into effect, making illegal immigration a state crime. Senate Bill 4 also authorizes local magistrate judges to issue removal orders. While the law will take effect in early March, groups like the ACLU have pledged to file a lawsuit challenging the bill. We'll let you know if that happens. Governor Greg Abbott also signed Senate Bill 3 into law last month. It earmarks $1.5 billion to continue building a barrier along the Texas-Mexico border and to fund immigration enforcement efforts. Still ahead, imagine looking out your window to see strangers running across your property. That's what's happening on Texas ranches, and it's hurting business. We'll find out what's being done to lower the risk.
The steps the Uvalde Police Department says it has made to keep its community safe. That is next in the News 4 Snapshot.
You're watching News 4 San Antonio.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me? Am I standing in the right spot? I'm standing on that X thing that you told me to stand on. Okay, sounds good. And Courtney, did you get my message? I'm reading the 25th on the concert. No, that's okay. That the Billy Joel Steen concert is on the 25th. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. I did. You're welcome.
Hello. Hi. Oh yeah, I'm here. I made it back. Well, it's been a wet few days around South Texas, and here in San Antonio, we are now the second wettest January on record, 6.72 inches so far this month at the airport, and we're running a surplus of over 5 inches just this month. You see the water almost over our rain gauge here. 6.72 inches for the year, also running 5 inches above normal, so we should be at 1.57 inches, and we are dry this evening, though. If you take a live look across South Texas, 4 zones, looking pretty good, mostly sunny conditions. Been a beautiful day, and we finally saw the sunshine today. Temperatures in the upper 60s to low 70s. This evening we're cooling off, but a very pleasant evening if you're headed out the next several hours as we do fall back into the 50s. Small rain chance for your Friday, but more sunshine for the weekend. Full forecast right ahead.
I'm Melissa Vega, and this is your News 4 Snapshot. Tonight, we are learning more on the steps the Uvalde Police Department took in response to the recommendations in the Department of Justice report, including new equipment, including shields, ballistic helmets, and armor plates are some of the enhancements. They also received new communication councils. Department officials say staff has taken nearly 1,700 hours of new training since the Robb Elementary School shooting. And San Antonio police arrest a man accused of an armed robbery and pointing a gun at them while leading them on a chase. The chase started this morning on Culebra and ended in a crash on West Mayfield. The 19-year-old suspect is accused of targeting a random woman and stealing her Louis Vuitton purse. And two legends are coming to San Antonio. Billy Joel and Sting will be in concert at the Alamo Dome on October 25th. The Dome making a big announcement today. This is Joel's first show in the Alamo City since 2016. Sting last performed here with the Police back in 2007. I'm Melissa Vega, and that is a look at your News 4 Snapshot.
Still ahead, migrants hurting business near the border. The efforts to keep them off private property next on News 4 San Antonio In Depth.
From the Admiral's arrival to Tim Duncan's first interview in our city and the first San Antonio sportscaster to talk to Wemby, Don Harris is your #1 Spurs authority. Here then, here now, here for you.
Welcome back. The immigration crisis not just impacting people who live along the border.
Texas ranchers are losing money on hunting profits because of migrants running through their land. Authorities say they need to access ranches in places like Zavala County to help find migrants trying to stay under the radar and the coyotes paid to smuggle them. But the property owners don't want to give them access because hunters are there. DPS is there trying to do its part to protect everyone in the area.
We're going to try our best to maintain security in all these private properties with our troopers, our special operations group, and our individuals that are pilots. We're going to patrol these areas to make sure that hunters and the community can feel safe.
It's the partnership between the community, DPS, and the sheriff of the area that are keeping everyone safe so that hunters can enjoy their hunting trips safely.
Now your certified most accurate 4-zone weather with meteorologist Joe DiCarlo.
Well, a live look across our 4 zones once again on this beautiful Thursday evening. After days of rain, today was sure a nice one to finally see that sunshine. Temperatures responding as well, back in the upper 60s to low 70s. So a beautiful evening right now across our 4 zones. It's 69 in Uvalde, 66 Rock Springs, 73 still in Cotulla, and we're now cooled down to 62 here in San Antonio. We have a few some passing clouds out there, mainly high-level clouds pushing through our eastern zone and out to the west right now, but none of these clouds are producing any rain. So for the first time in several days. No rain to track across South Texas right now. We do have a piece of energy, though, moving into West Texas, and we have another front that will come through tomorrow evening, and we do have a rain chance tomorrow. But for this evening, a very pleasant evening. Temperatures will cool off into the 50s. A few passing clouds, that's about it. So overall, pretty nice for late January here in South Texas. Overnight, though, clouds will return. So tomorrow we'll start overcast with some areas of patchy fog in the morning. And then as we head throughout the day, can't rule out a little drizzle, mist, or a very light shower, especially along I-35 and into our eastern zone. You see a little bit more sunshine once again as you work to the west. So we'll be warmer out west, and it will be a slightly cooler day from Barrett County into our eastern zone for your Friday. So not a lot of rain compared to what we've seen the past several days, but again, that chance of more overcast skies and a little drizzle is possible to end your work week. Patchy fog in the morning as well, so visibility will drop in spots tomorrow morning. That will lift later on in the morning. So here's your Friday forecast. More cloud cover than what we saw today. Temperatures will be a little cooler as well. We'll only go for 61 for an afternoon high temperature in San Antonio on your Friday. Rain chance at about 30%, mainly for the drizzle tomorrow, and then for the rest of the weekend, no chance of rain. Next rain chance doesn't move in until next Thursday at about 30%. So for your weekend, it's going to feel a whole lot nicer out. Finally get that sunshine, mostly sunny, 64 on Saturday. Sunday will start a little cooler, near 40 in the morning, but plenty of sun, 64 again for the afternoon. So a seasonal and very pleasant weekend in front of us across South Texas. So the rain chance tomorrow, mainly that drizzle, fog in the morning, 61, mid-60s this weekend with plenty of sunshine. And next week is mild and temperatures right where they should be. Mid-60s for afternoon highs, lows near 40. Another rain chance moves in next Thursday. So no Arctic air and no flooding on the horizon across our 4 zones. Western zone, 72, a little bit more sun on your Friday. Hill country will be in the low 60s. Small chance of a little drizzle through the day. Nice weekend ahead. Eastern zone, the best chance of an isolated shower through your Friday, and then dry for the weekend with seasonal temperatures.
This is the Thomas J. Henry Sports Desk.
You know, two things are very clear after the Spurs' latest blowout loss, this time to Oklahoma City. Victor Wembanyama is indeed a superstar, and the Spurs' roster deficiency has never been more obvious than against a young, talented team like OKC. Wemby was spectacular as usual. Now, being able to play 30 minutes a game, he put up an historic line, 24 points, 4 blocks, 4 assists, 6th time he's done that this year, most in the NBA and most by a rookie in 50 years. But OKC exposed the Spurs' weaknesses around him. They had 4 players better than anybody on the Spurs other than Wemby. His numbers should get even better. He expects the minutes restriction to be completely lifted very soon.
Yeah, I think we're getting close, and it's a good thing. For me, the recovery is always the most important, and even though sometimes it's hard to sleep with the time zones and travels, we gotta do as best as we can, and my body's reacting pretty well so far.
Now, the good news is no matter their record, the improvements are obvious. They are getting better. Now, until they get better players around Wemby, they won't contend. But as Zach Hedrick tells us, the baby steps to winning are taking shape.
I think, there's a lot of bright spots on their road trip.
It's a thought not a lot of NBA teams would share after winning just 1 game out of 5 on their most recent road trip. But for the Spurs, it makes sense.
I think we've moved past the point of, giving in when teams go on runs. I think we've learned how to be professional and understand that happens, and it's okay to go through that, but you got to push back, and I think we've grown out of that, so that's good to see.
There's no doubt a few things have clicked into place for the NBA's youngest team over the past few weeks. Just go back to Coach Pop's comments after a 12-point loss to the Utah Jazz on December 26th.
Part of it is youth. Part of it is probably I need to demand from certain people. It's time they have to be more consistent or I make changes.
The Spurs may have only won 4 games since then, but the players are finding a groove with each other.
Our team, our whole roster getting better. Our results getting better. And also individually, we see guys getting more comfortable to play with each other.
Wins may be tough to come by over the second half of the season. The goal now is to consistently string those bright spots together. Zach Hedrick, News 4, San Antonio.
All right, thanks, Zach. Hey, the Cowboys may be out of the playoffs, but Dak Prescott is a finalist for the MVP. He and CeeDee Lamb Both finalists for the Offensive Player of the Year award, and Micah Parsons and Deron Bland are both finalists for the Defensive Player of the Year award. With that many good players, you think the Cowboys would still be alive?
You think?
We had to go there.
But they're not. I guess
Bringing up the old stuff.
Glass is half full.
There you go.
You think Dak over Lamar?
No, Lamar Jackson's the MVP.
That's what I was thinking too. All right,
Thank
we'll
you,
be
Don.
right back. Well, thank you for joining us for News 4 In Depth as we address the crisis at the border.
We will continue to hold people accountable, so be sure to let us know what topic you'd like us to cover in future in-depth newscasts. You can chime in on our News 4 Facebook page along with X channels.
If you'd like to re-watch this newscast, you can go to news4sa.com and you can find all of our in-depth shows on our YouTube channel. We've covered more than a dozen issues important to you, including the San Antonio-Austin corridor growth, bond reform, youth crime, crisis in the classroom, and the Wemby effect on San Antonio. Like I said, just search News 4 San Antonio podcasts on YouTube.
Next on News 4 San Antonio at 6:30, we continue to honor the latest Pay It Forward organization making an impact across the nation. How Next Talk aims to keep your kids safe amid constant dangers online.
This is News 4 San Antonio at 6:30.
The crisis at the border continues across the United States. Several sanctuary cities and states stretched thin over migrants bused or flown to their region.
A nonprofit lists the area's top schools benefiting community students in meaningful ways.
And this month's Pay It Forward honoree is a local organization with nationwide reach, keeping kids safe online. We take you inside to let you know more about Next Talk.
Welcome to News 4 at 6:30. I'm Jonathan Martinez.
I'm Mandy Noel. The crisis at the border continues as former President Donald Trump's influence could pose an issue to resolving issues at the southern border.
That's right. This is bipartisan deal in the Senate combining border enforcement and aid for Ukraine now facing many doubts. And Senate Republicans appear to be weighing Donald Trump's opposition to the deal in their decision making.
In response, Republican Senator Mitt Romney told reporters today the actions of the GOP presidential hopeful are appalling.
President Trump has indicated to senators that he does not want us to solve the problem at the border. He wants to lay the blame for the border at Biden. And the idea that someone running for president would say, please hurt the country so I can blame my opponent and help my politics is a shocking